Well, the highly anticipated summit between US President Joe Biden and his Russian counterpart, Vladimir Putin, is getting underway in Geneva. It's the first meeting between the two men since Joe Biden began his presidency, and both leaders have said they hope their talks can lead to more stable and predictable relations. Well, both sides currently describe their relations as being at rock bottom. Well, President Putin arrived in Geneva less than half an hour ago, flying in from Moscow. He'll then arrive very shortly at the summit in the beautiful villa on the shores of Lake Geneva. Well, the issues on the table for discussion at this bilateral meeting include arms control, sanctions and climate change. And President Biden is also expected to lay down some red lines, if you like, to try to calm Russia's most aggressive policies. Washington has accused Moscow of carrying out cyber attacks and of interfering in elections, and it's also criticised Russia's human rights record. Well, with me now is our chief international correspondent, Lise Doucet. And Lise, just, set the scene for us. Why is this summit so crucial? Why are we in the world's media going so crazy over it?
Because it matters and because it's dangerous. This is not just a meeting between the President of the United States of America and the President of the Russian Federation. This is a meeting of two of the world's nuclear-armed superpowers. And just weeks ago, when we had Russian troop movements on the border with Ukraine, the headlines were all about, is there going to be another war in Ukraine? We just heard about the red lines for the United States. Well, President Putin has red lines as well. And I think both leaders are approaching this summit as a way to lower the temperature, begin to establish a relationship between two leaders whose relationship will map their ability to resolve some of the world's biggest problems. Yes, on the bigger questions of stability and arms control, on issues about regional issues and threats, but also to work together on issues where they can both benefit, be it climate change, be it issues of regional crises, Afghanistan, the Middle East, all of these where they can work together and try to find common ground. They're not going to be friends, but they need to establish a good working relationship. And that is why it's so interesting that President Biden has asked for this so early in his presidency.
Absolutely, he has asked for it early, and he asked for it. He wanted this meeting, and it's significant, isn't it, that this meeting is not being held on the fringes of some other event. These two men are meeting together for their own summit, for their own bilaterals. And we can see here, Lise, pictures of President Putin arriving now at that hotel.
Gorgeous 18th century villa. It just reminds us of that history is in the air. And even though, as we've heard repeatedly, the expectations are low, indeed the US officials are emphasizing not to expect very much. Of course, that's a tactic too. It is true that we shouldn't expect much, but then if something happens, then everyone's surprised and said, wow, it's a great success because something did happen. I mean, you do wonder, there are smaller gives and takes that could, the fact that they don't have ambassadors in place, the fact that some consulates had been shut. There are some smaller, they're not just technical, because everything technical is also political, that they could offer something on that end. On the bigger issues, I think it will just be, there we have now, of course, President Putin enjoying the Geneva sunshine before he heads into his meetings. First red carpet.
Did they shake hands, Lise? I swear they did. Yes, they are shaking hands.
It almost seems like a crime in our COVID world.
It's very different to the G7, where it was all,
Well, they might have both been double jabbed in the sense of having two vaccines. Yes, interesting, because since you were at the G7, all of the pageantry and the performance of will they bump fists, will they bump elbows, will they put their hand on their heart? Everyone had their own way of saying hello. Well, President Putin has just made it clear he's a traditional diplomat. He's going to shake hands. Let's see what happens with President Biden. He's also not wearing a mask. President Biden makes a point of wearing masks and then taking it off when it's face to face. Back to what we said before, that everyone's going to look at the minutiae of all this, the body language, because symbols do matter in diplomacy. They tell us, little things can tell us a lot, but there are big issues that matter not just to Russia and the United States, matter to the region, they matter to all of us. And I think that is why all of the world's cameras including ours, are focused right now on that door with the flags at this gorgeous 18th century villa on the splendid Lake Geneva under brilliant sunshine. The optics look good, but let's see what happens when the two men are in the room where it happens.
The optics look great, don't they? And this is Geneva. Geneva has historic significance in terms of Russian-American summits. Looking back to 1985, the summit between President Gorbachev and Reagan. And also, if we look at past summits, the one back in Helsinki in 2018, which I believe, Lise, you are actually at. I don't think that the American intelligence service, at least, wants to see a repeat of anything like that.
Yes, it was very interesting. There was clearly a rapport between President Trump and President Putin. It was often remarked throughout President Trump's time in office that he never once criticized President Putin. And here we have President Biden arriving today. In recent months, he described him as a killer, or agreed to a question, would you say he's a killer? He said yes. He answered to the question. He's told him to his face in 2011, he has no soul. But those...
Does it really, Lise?
Well, I think, when you get to leaders, it's not just about diplomacy, but it's about talking, shaking hands, but also talking tough. There we have a sort of a scene from another angle in Geneva. It's interesting that, of course, it's attracting a lot of attention. No one's going to get very close to the leaders except those delegations who are now the American and the Russian delegation getting ready. It's interesting because they're not going to be starting from zero. They all have so much history. You mentioned about Anthony Blinken, the U.S. Secretary of State. Well, he will have met Mr. Lavrov, the veteran Russian foreign minister, so many times. When Anthony Blinken was a senior official in the Obama administration, they would have met repeatedly on Syria, including sometimes in Geneva. I saw those talks taking place at that time. Between John Kerry and Lavrov. So they've met many times before. So there's already a personal relationship, and they will want to try to build on that to make some progress, even if it's just the first steps on developing a working relationship.
And those two men, Mr. Lavrov and Mr. Blinken, will be in the room for that initial meeting, won't they, with Presidents Biden and Putin? And, they are going to be note takers. Interestingly, when President Trump met Mr. Putin in Helsinki, there were no note takers. Obviously, beyond the obvious, why is it important to have these note takers there within these first initial meetings?
It's absolutely essential, which is why the concern was when President Trump and President Putin didn't have note takers when they met tete-a-tete, is that afterwards they need to look back at the notes, and in case someone says, well, this happened in the room, and the other one said, well, no, this didn't happen, well, they will have a matter of record to go back and check exactly what did Putin say? And a lot of it will be in translation. So was the translation correct? Would you say this is, do you remember when they used the word reset? And later it was said during Hillary Clinton's time, and it was said, well, they actually used the wrong word. It was translated incorrectly. So all of these are really important. And of course, President Biden will want to go back over them because, it's like an interview, Mariam. You're really focused not only on what the person in front of you is saying, but you're also thinking about what you have to say, and you can miss things. It's important in the moment. It'll be important in the weeks to follow, and it's also important as historical record.
OK, well, Lise, stay with us. Lise Doucet, our chief international correspondent. US President Joe Biden and his counterpart are meeting imminently for what is the first summit for President Biden with his Russian counterpart since he became president of the United States. It's a crucial time for both men because, as many people have described, the relationship between these two global superpowers is at an all-time high. So this summit really, as Lise was saying, is a chance for them to get to know each other better as presidents, but also for some sort of a reset between these two countries. Key topics to be discussed will be cybersecurity, arms control, US allegations of Russia meddling in elections, and also, of course, sanctions against Russia, Ukraine, Crimea. All of those subjects will be very much in focus. That's the US flag, I think, that we can see flapping away on those limousines. I'm not sure it's flapping so hard I can barely make it out. No, maybe it's not. Yes, it is. It is the US flag. Yes, so that is President Biden's motorcade. And important to actually underline the fact that in the past, President Putin has a reputation, I might add, of arriving late, of keeping US presidents waiting at conferences, at summits. And so it was interesting in terms of the planning and the optics that President Putin actually was scheduled to arrive before President Biden at this meeting. And I think, now President Biden arriving with his huge motorcade. I think it's even bigger, Lisa, isn't it, than President Putin's? What does that say about the two of them?
Yeah, size matters. It's extraordinary how much preparation goes into these meetings in terms of the logistics. I mean, they sometimes have to bring the armored vehicles, the beast travels with President Biden, travels with the President of the United States. Everything right down to the second is planned when it comes to security, when it comes to preparing notes. And as we've been saying, President Biden is known for really preparing, seeking the advice of lots of people. There's been some question, does he take too long to make decisions? And in the weeks before this crucial summit that he requested, he's been preparing. Unlike President Trump, who just thought he could wing it, he was so confident of his own personal capacities as a deal maker, the deal maker of all deal makers, and then he felt that he didn't need a lot of preparation.
Okay, let's go live.